I was halfway through brushing my teeth when the voicemail came through. My phone buzzed on the bathroom counter, the small green light blinking like a warning flare. It was 3:47 in the morning. No one calls at that hour unless something's gone terribly wrong. I spat out the toothpaste, wiped my mouth, and pressed play. Ruby Jane, it's Mom. Honey, there's been an issue with the bank. We need to talk right now. It's about Derek's loan. Please call us back. My mother's voice cracked like glass under pressure. The sound of her desperation rattled me more than her words. My mother, Georgia DeWitt, doesn't crack. She commands, she cajoles, she manipulates with all the grace of a master puppeteer, but she never cracks. I played the message again, listening to the frantic edge in her voice. I'd spent 32 years learning how to navigate my family's storms, how to be the responsible one in a house built on denial and sweet-talking disasters. And yet, even with all that practice, I felt my stomach drop as I realized what she'd done. I didn't bother changing out of my pajamas. I grabbed my car keys and was in the driver's seat in under 3 minutes, driving through the foggy darkness to the house I'd grown up in. The house that looked perfect from the outside, the lawn meticulously trimmed, the American flag hanging above the porch in tidy defiance of the chaos inside. When I stepped through the front door, my parents were sitting at the kitchen island. My father, Daniel DeWitt, stared down at the granite countertop as though he might find a way out of this mess carved into the stone. My mother looked up at me with teary eyes. "What did you do?" I asked. My voice was calm, almost gentle, but my fingers were clenching so tight around my phone that the plastic casing creaked. "Honey!" My mother started, her voice honey thick, with the same manipulation I'd heard my whole life. "We had to help Derek. This was his chance. You know how much he's been trying, Mom." I cut her off, my voice flat. "What did you do?" My father cleared his throat. "The business loan. Derek and his partner needed it. The bank wanted collateral." I felt my heart go still. "What collateral?" He hesitated, then said it. "Your savings account." It felt like the kitchen tilted sideways. My savings, the money I'd been putting away since I was 16, the cushion I'd built to finally buy my own house, or maybe go back to grad school someday. My future drained away in the dead of night. "You used my account," I said. My voice was icy now, no hint of the daughterly affection they always counted on. "It was only to back the loan, Ruby Jane," my mother rushed to explain. "We never thought it would come to this. Derek's partner disappeared. And the payments. My phone was already in my hand, the banking app open." My heart thundered as the numbers loaded. My balance stared back at me, $19,624.83. Mom's face went pale. No, there should be over 300,000 there." "Ruby Jane, what did you do?" "What did I do?" I repeated. The laughter that bubbled up was cold and sharp. "What did I do?" "You forged my name. You used my future to clean up Derek's mess." Again. Dad's shoulders slumped. "We didn't forge." "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "You forged my signature. The bank doesn't just hand over someone's savings without explicit consent." "Where is Derek?" My mother swallowed hard. He's not answering." "We think he might have gone to Mexico." "Ruby Jane, the bank is calling in the loan. They're threatening foreclosure on the house." The house, my childhood home. My mother's obsession with image had kept it looking perfect for years, but now the facade was crumbling. I took a deep breath. "You've done this before," I said quietly. "The investment fund Grandpa left me, gone. My college savings, gone. Every time Derek comes up with a new, big idea, you throw everything into the fire to save him." "This is different, Ruby," my mother said, her voice trembling. "We didn't have a choice. Family comes first." I let out a bitter laugh. "Family comes first, or Derek comes first." My phone buzzed again. A text from Derek himself, as if on cue. "Hey, sis. Mom and Dad said you'd help us out of this. It's not that much, just enough to get us over the line." I closed my eyes. It was like a script they'd all memorized, played out again and again, until I'd learned every line by heart. Only this time, I wasn't playing my part. "Ruby Jane, please," my father said. "If we don't fix this, we lose everything." I looked at them, my mother with her trembling hands, my father with his shamefaced silence. The people who'd raised me to believe my worth was measured by how much I could fix for them. I've already fixed it, I said softly. But not for you. I'd seen this coming. Months ago, when Derek started calling at 2 a.m. with his next big thing. When my mother started asking about my accounts. When my father mentioned how family always pulls together. I'd moved everything I had overseas into a shell corporation I set up with the help of a lawyer friend. It was safe. Untouchable. You moved the money, my father said, his voice hollow. You knew we'd do this. I knew, I said. And I knew I had to protect myself. My mother's face crumpled a mask of betrayal. We're your family. You can't just leave us to lose everything. I stood in the doorway, the weight of 32 years pressing down on my shoulders. I'm not leaving you with nothing, I said. I'm leaving you with exactly what you've earned. And with that, I turned and walked out into the night. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I didn't bother looking. I knew what it would say: more guilt, more pleas, more of the same script they'd always used. But I was done playing my part. 2 days later, I sat across from Sasha, my best friend and lawyer, in her minimalist downtown office. Her walls were lined with law books and framed degrees, but she'd always said the real power was in the records people tried to hide. Today, I was counting on that. Sasha pushed her glasses up her nose and eyed me carefully. You moved everything, she asked. I nodded. Every last cent. My savings, the inheritance from Grandpa, even the emergency fund. I didn't want them to have a single excuse to get their claws in. She leaned back, fingers drumming against the edge of her desk. I'm glad you came to me when you did, Ruby. But you understand what this means, right? They won't stop at guilt-tripping you. They'll escalate. I swallowed hard. I'm ready. I'm tired of playing the responsible one while they treat my life like an open checkbook. She nodded. Let's see what else they've been up to. She reached for the stack of bank statements and loan applications I'd brought. You said you wanted me to look for patterns? Yeah? I said, staring at the neat stacks of paper. I'm pretty sure this isn't the first time they've done this. I want to know just how deep this rabbit hole goes. As she started scanning through the documents, I stared out the window. Outside, the city moved on, as if nothing had changed. People hurrying to work, delivery vans, double-parked, coffee in hand. Normal life. But I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, everything familiar teetering on the brink. A soft ping drew my attention. My phone lit up with a new message from Derek. Sis, please. I'm in Mexico, but I just need a little more to keep the business alive. I'll pay you back, I swear. I deleted it without replying. My thumb hovered over the block button, but I couldn't quite do it. Not yet. Some part of me still wanted to believe he'd change. Sasha's voice cut through my thoughts. Ruby, you need to see this. I turned back to her. She held up a piece of paper, her brows knitted. This is a loan application dated 4 years ago. Your signature's on it, but the notary stamp is faked. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. My stomach dropped. I never signed that. I know, she said. And there's more. Multiple applications with slight variations in your signature, all funneled into different shell accounts under Derek's name. It's like they were running a private Ponzi scheme with your future as the foundation. I stared at the paper bile rising in my throat. How much are we talking? She pulled out a spreadsheet she'd made on her laptop. At least $150,000 in fraudulent loans. And that's just what I've found so far. I pressed my fingers to my temples. They've been using me like a bank for years. And they're going to keep doing it, Sasha said, her voice low and urgent. Unless you make them stop. Legally, publicly. I took a shaky breath. I want to. I want to do whatever it takes. She leaned forward. Good. Because the only way this ends is if you stop being their safety net. They're going to try to turn this around on you, call you selfish, say you're destroying the family. I laughed bitterly. That's been their line my whole life. Before she could answer, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mother. Family meeting tonight, 8 p.m. Non-negotiable. We need to fix this, Ruby Jane. I read it out loud to Sasha. She shook her head. They're going to put everything on you. They'll beg, they'll blame, and they'll act like it's your job to save them. They've always done that, I said. But I'm not that person anymore. Good, she said. Because tonight, you need to go in there ready. No more letting them define what family means. I left her office with a folder of evidence clutched in my hands, my mind a swirl of memories. My father's patient smile as he said, "Family first, Ruby." My mother's bright laughter at garden parties, masking the rot underneath. And always, Derek's easy charm, like he could sell water to a drowning man. I'd spent my whole life cleaning up after them, but tonight I would show them what I'd learned. The house looked exactly the same as I pulled into the driveway, but I was seeing it with new eyes. The perfect white shutters, the glowing porch light. It was all a stage set for a play that had run too long. I stepped inside and found them waiting in the living room. My mother perched on the sofa, hands twisting a handkerchief in her lap. My father stood by the fireplace, his face carefully neutral. And Derek was sprawled in Dad's armchair, his face pale and sweaty, phone clutched tight in his hand. "Ruby Jane, Mom," said her voice soft and hopeful. "We're glad you came. I didn't bother sitting down. Let's get to the point." My father's brow furrowed. "There's no need to be harsh. We're family. We can work this out." "Family doesn't forge signatures," I said flatly. "Family doesn't steal futures." Derek flinched. "You don't understand, Ruby. This is about more than just money. It's about keeping the family together." "The family," I said, my voice rising. "You've been tearing this family apart for years. Every time you fail, you expect me to pick up the pieces." My mother's lips trembled. "We're just trying to protect everyone. You're the strong one, Ruby. You've always been the strong one." "That's not protection," I said, my voice quiet and hard. "That's exploitation." Silence. My father shifted uncomfortably, looking at the floor. Derek swallowed hard, his face a mask of pleading. "Please, Ruby," he said. "Just a little more. I swear this time." "No," I said. "No more. I've moved everything. It's out of your reach." My mother gasped. You moved it. You didn't trust us." "Should I have?" I asked, my voice cracking. "After everything," Derek's face twisted. "You're going to ruin us," he spat. "You're going to let everything fall apart." I looked at each of them, my mother's tears, my father's shame, Derek's desperation, and felt something inside me click into place. "I'm not going to let anything happen," I said. "Except the truth." And with that, I turned and walked out, my phone already buzzing with Sasha's message, "I've found more. We're going to expose every last lie." I smiled, the first real smile in weeks. The ghosts of my family's greed were coming back to haunt them, and this time they couldn't bury me under the wreckage. I barely slept that night. The words from our family meeting played on a loop in my mind. My mother's soft voice, cracking with desperation, my father's tight-lipped silence, and Derek's slurred pleas. But underneath it all was the same rotten core. They would rather see me sacrifice everything than face their own failures. By morning, I was back in Sasha's office. She sat behind her desk, her laptop open, a new stack of documents waiting for me. "You were right, Ruby," she said, sliding a file across the desk. "They've been using your name for years." I found at least a dozen more documents, loan applications, investment transfers, even a fake life insurance policy, where they listed you as the beneficiary, but funneled the payout back to Derek. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. How is that even possible? Sasha's eyes were hard. "Your parents know people at the bank, old friends who were willing to look the other way. They forged signatures, backdated forms, and always said it was to help the family." I leaned back in my chair, my mind spinning. "This isn't just a few bad decisions. This is deliberate." "Exactly," she said. "And we're going to prove it. But there's more." She pulled up an email on her laptop and turned the screen toward me. It was from a real estate lawyer I'd never heard of, confirming a transfer of the family home's deed 3 months ago. My mouth went dry. "They moved the house out of their names." "Not out of their names," Sasha said. "Out of yours." I blinked. "Mine. You inherited a third of that house from your grandfather, Ruby. They never told you. But legally it's been yours since you were 18, and they transferred it without your signature." I stared at her, my heart hammering. "So they've been lying about that too?" Sasha nodded. "It's theft. Fraud." We have enough to file a lawsuit that will freeze everything, every bank account, every asset they used your name on. For a moment, I felt a wave of dizzy relief. Then my phone buzzed, and I saw Derek's name flashing on the screen. I didn't answer. I couldn't. But a new text came through immediately. "You're going to destroy us all. Please, Ruby, don't do this." I turned the phone over and pushed it away. "Do it, Sasha," I said. "File everything. They've stolen enough from me." She nodded and started typing furiously. "I'll get my team on it right away." That evening, I went back to the family home one last time. Not to talk, just to watch. From my car across the street, I saw
Hola,
my mother
niño.
pacing in the living room, her phone glued to her ear. My father
Sigas
was
con
at his desk,
chicles.
staring blankly at a stack of papers he couldn't fix. The house looked so normal from the outside, the porch light glowing softly as the sun set. But inside, the cracks were finally showing. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my Aunt Harriet, my mother's sister, who'd
Hola,
always been on the
niño.
outskirts of these family dramas. "Ruby," she said when I answered, "I heard about what's happening. Your mother's been calling everyone crying about how you're tearing the family apart."
¿Qué
I
pasó,
almost
niño?
laughed. "Of course she has." Harriet's
¿Qué
voice dropped.
pasó?
"Don't let her guilt
¿Ah?
you. I've seen this for years, how they use you. You're finally doing what's right." For a moment, my throat tightened. "Thanks, Aunt Harriet. I needed to hear that." "Good," she said. "And, Ruby, if you need anything, you call me. I'm on your side." I hung up and took a deep breath. I was done letting their version of family define me. The next morning, Sasha called. "We have a court date, emergency injunction to freeze their assets. Once it's filed, they won't be able to move another dime without approval." My hands were shaking as I parked outside the courthouse. Sasha met me at the steps, her briefcase in one hand and a calm, focused look in her eyes. "You ready for this?" she asked. "More than ready," I said. Inside the courtroom was small and hushed. My parents were there, sitting stiffly behind their lawyer. My mother's eyes met mine across the room, wide and pleading. My father wouldn't look at me at all. When the judge asked if I had anything to say, I stood. My voice was steady. For years, I believed that helping my family meant giving them everything. But it turns out it just meant losing myself. I'm done with that. I'm here because they used my name, my credit, my future, to pay for their mistakes. And I'm done being their safety net. The judge listened, nodding slowly. Then she turned to my parents' lawyer. "Any response?" He cleared his throat, flustered. "Your Honor, this is a family matter." "No," the judge interrupted. "This is a matter of fraud. The motion is granted. All assets are frozen, pending further investigation." My mother let out a strangled cry. My father's face turned gray, but I felt like I could finally breathe. After the hearing, Sasha and I stepped out into the bright spring air. She turned to me, a smile tugging at her lips. "You did it," she said. "Not yet," I said. "There's still the house. And all those people at the bank who looked the other way. We'll get them too," she promised. Before I could reply, my phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Ruby Jane," a voice said. "You don't know me, but I work at the bank. I've seen what your parents did, and I'm willing to testify." For a moment, the world seemed to slow. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because they did the same thing to my sister." The voice said, raw with emotion. "She didn't have anyone to help her. You're doing what she couldn't." I swallowed hard. "Thank you. I'll have my lawyer call you." When I hung up, Sasha was watching me. "What was that about another piece of the puzzle?" I said. "It's not just about me anymore." Sasha nodded. "Then let's finish this. Let's make sure they can never do this to anyone else." As I walked away from the courthouse, I felt the weight of everything I'd carried start to lift. My family's betrayal wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my freedom. And for the first time in years, I felt ready to face whatever came next. I woke up early the next morning to the sound of my phone buzzing relentlessly. Sasha's name flashed on the screen, and I answered groggily. "What's going on, Ruby?" she said, her voice tense. "I just got a call from the courthouse. Your parents' lawyer is trying to challenge the injunction. They're claiming you moved the money illegally, like you're the one committing fraud." I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. "What? That's ridiculous. Everything I did was legal. I protected my own assets. I know, Sasha said. But they're desperate. They're going to try to twist this any way they can to make you look like the villain. I closed my eyes, breathing slowly. Okay, let them try. We have the evidence. We have the paper trail. Sasha's voice softened. I'm heading over to the courthouse now. I'll handle this, Ruby. You focus on staying steady. I hung up and stared at the ceiling, the weight of my family's betrayal pressing down on me like a stone. They'd turned this into a war, and I was done playing the part of the loyal soldier. Later that afternoon, Sasha called again. They backed off for now, she said. But Ruby, your brother's been talking. My stomach sank. What's he saying? He's been telling everyone at the country club that you're hiding money offshore, that you're trying to ruin the family name. He's painting you as the traitor. Of course he was. That was always Derek's way, deflect and blame, never own his mess. I let out a bitter laugh. Let them talk. The truth is coming out one way or another. Sasha hesitated. There's something else. The local paper picked up the story someone tipped them off about the frozen assets. They're digging deeper. A chill ran down my spine. Do you think it was Derek? I wouldn't put it past him, she said. But it doesn't matter. They're going to find out what really happened, and that's what matters. I hung up and sat there for a long time, staring at the phone in my hand. My family's lies were starting to unravel, and there was no going back. That evening, I got a call from Aunt Harriet. Ruby, you need to see this, she said. I'm sending you a photo. A few seconds later, my phone pinged with a picture of my mother, her face, pale eyes red, standing outside a lawyer's office. The caption read, Georgia DeWitt, seen meeting with criminal defense attorney. I stared at the image, my stomach churning. My mother, the woman who'd spent her life projecting an image of perfection, now reduced to frantic damage control. I called Harriet back. Thank you for sending that. Ruby, she said quietly. They're scared. They know what's coming. I took a deep breath. Good. Let them be scared. The next morning, I drove to the family house. I didn't go inside. I just sat in the car, staring at the place I'd once called home. The white shutters looked a little dingier than usual, the garden overgrown. It was as if the house itself was tired of pretending. As I watched Derek pulled up in his beat-up sedan, he stumbled out, looking hungover, and leaned against the mailbox like he could barely stand. I rolled down my window. What do you want, Derek? He turned to me, his face twisted in a bitter smile. You're destroying everything you know. That I shook my head. No, Derek. I'm just done letting you destroy me. He laughed, a hollow, angry sound. You think this is going to end well for you. Mom and Dad will never forgive you. They'll fight you until the end. I met his gaze steadily. They've been fighting me my whole life, Derek. And I'm done playing along. He kicked at the curb, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. They're saying I'm the one who dragged you into this. That I'm the problem. You are? I said simply. But you're not the only one. They enabled you. They taught you it was okay. He flinched like I'd slapped him. You always thought you were better than me, didn't you, little Miss Perfect with her savings account and her perfect credit score? I never thought I was better, I said. I just wanted something different. And I'm finally done letting you take it from me. He pushed away from the mailbox, his face darkening. You're going to regret this. I didn't bother answering. I just rolled up the window and drove away, leaving him standing there in the dust. Back at Sasha's office, I found her deep in paperwork. I've got everything prepped, she said as I walked in. Every forged signature, every fraudulent transfer. We're filing the official complaint tomorrow morning. I nodded. Good. I want them to see everything they've done, no more secrets. She looked at me carefully. Ruby, once this goes public, there's no going back. Are you sure you're ready? I thought about it for a moment. About the years I'd spent trying to be the good daughter, the responsible sister. About the endless cycle of fixing and forgiving. And then I nodded. I'm ready, I said. Sasha's face softened into a small, proud smile. Okay, let's do this. That night I went home and pulled out the box I'd been avoiding for weeks. Inside were old family photos, birthdays, vacations, Christmas mornings. All those moments that felt so warm and safe at the time before I understood what lay beneath. I flipped through them slowly, my fingers tracing the edges. I didn't cry. I didn't feel the need to. The girl in those pictures was gone, and in her place was someone stronger. Someone who wouldn't be fooled again. My phone buzzed with another message from Derek. Please, Ruby. Just talk to me. We can fix this. I didn't reply. I turned off the phone, put the photos back in the box, and shoved it into the back of my closet. Some memories weren't worth keeping close. As I crawled into bed, I thought about the house that was legally mine, and yet never really home, about the money they'd stolen and the lies they'd told. And I realized something they'd always said: family was about loyalty, about sacrifice. But what they really meant was control. And I was done being controlled. The next morning, I woke up early, the sun streaming through my window. I took a deep breath and felt something new in my chest: peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what they would do next. Because I knew what I would do. I would finish this. The next morning, Sasha and I met at the courthouse steps just before sunrise. She looked crisp and collected in her navy suit, her hair pulled back in a sleek twist. I, on the other hand, felt like I was about to face a firing squad. My hands were trembling, but I clenched them into fists and forced myself to breathe. "This is it," Sasha said, handing me the final stack of papers. "Everything's in here, every forged signature, every dollar stolen under your name. Once we file this, it's public record. No more secrets." I nodded, feeling the weight of the file in my hands. I want this. No more half-truths. No more pretending. Sasha's eyes met mine, and she gave a small, proud smile. "Let's go." We stepped inside, the air heavy with the quiet murmurs of people waiting for their hearings. My parents were already there, sitting side by side in the hallway. My father's face was pale, his jaw clenched. My mother's eyes were red, her hands twisting a handkerchief over and over. When she saw me, she stood up. "Ruby Jane, please. Don't do this." I didn't answer. I just walked past her straight into the clerk's office and handed over the file. The clerk stamped it with a heavy thunk that echoed in the room. "It's done," I said softly as Sasha and I stepped back out into the hallway. My mother took a step toward me. "How could you do this to your family?" I turned to her, my voice steady. "How could you do this to me for so many years?" She flinched, and my father looked away. I realized then that they would never understand, that in their minds, they were still the victims of my refusal to save them. Derek wasn't there, but I knew he'd show up eventually. He always did. By the time the sun was high in the sky, the local news had picked up the story. A headline scrolled across my phone: "Prominent local family accused of financial fraud." My parents' carefully cultivated reputation was unraveling in real time. I was sitting on the steps outside the courthouse when my phone buzzed again. It was Aunt Harriet. "Ruby, you're trending," she said, her voice somewhere between shocked and impressed. "Your father's firm is in panic mode, and your mother's charity board is already talking about removing her." I let out a shaky breath. Good. They need to face what they did. "There's more," Harriet said. "Derek's gone underground. He's telling people you're trying to ruin him out of spite, that you're making it all up." Of course he was. I'd expected nothing less. "Let him talk," I said. "The truth is stronger than his stories." Late that afternoon, I drove out to the family house one last time. The house I technically owned a third of, though it felt like it belonged to the ghosts of all the lies told within its walls. I didn't go inside. Instead, I stood on the front lawn, staring at the peeling white shutters and the cracked driveway. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Derek. "Come outside," he said, his voice low and strained. "I'm here." I turned and saw him standing by the mailbox, his face drawn and pale. He looked like a man unraveling. I walked over slowly, my heart pounding. "What do you want, Derek?" He shifted from foot to foot, unable to meet my eyes. "I just need to talk to you, one last time." "Say what you have to say," I said. He looked up then, and for a moment, I saw the little boy he used to be, the one who used to follow me around the yard with wide, eager eyes. But that boy was gone. replaced by a man who'd learned how to take and take until there was nothing left. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he said, his voice cracking. I thought, I thought you'd always bail me out, like you always did. I stared at him. And that's the problem, Derek. You thought I owed you my life. His shoulders slumped. They're going to lose everything, Ruby. Mom and Dad. They're already talking about selling the house, moving away. They say it's all because of you. A flicker of pain shot through me, but I didn't let it show. It's not because of me, I said quietly. It's because of what they did. He looked at me then, eyes wild. Please, just take it back. Tell everyone it's not true. I can't, I said. Because it is true. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then he let out a choked laugh. You really are done with us, aren't you? I nodded. I am. He looked like he wanted to argue, to plead. But in the end, he just turned and walked back to his car, slamming the door shut behind him. I watched him drive away, and with every mile he put between us, I felt the weight on my shoulders grow a little lighter. That night, I sat in my apartment with Sasha and Aunt Harriet. We drank wine and watched the news as the story spread. My father's firm had announced his early retirement, a polite way of saying he'd been forced out. My mother's charities were cutting ties. And Derek? No one seemed to know where he was. It's amazing how fast the truth travels when people finally see it, Harriet said, clinking her glass against mine. Sasha leaned back in her chair, a satisfied smile on her face. They'll try to fight back. But we have the documentation. We have the law. I looked at both of them, the weight of the last few weeks pressing down on me. Thank you. I couldn't have done this without you. Sasha shook her head. You're the one who stood up, Ruby. You're the one who said, enough. That's the hardest part. I smiled, and for the first time in what felt like years, I meant it. As the night wore on, I sat on my balcony, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed again, another message from my mother. You can't just walk away from your family, Ruby Jane. Family is everything. I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. Family is everything, she'd said. But sometimes the best thing you can do for your family is let them learn what happens when they cross a line that can't be uncrossed. I leaned back in my chair, breathing in the cool night air. The storm had come and gone, and in the quiet aftermath, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: freedom. Tomorrow, I'd take the next steps. But tonight, I would rest. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't have to be the one holding the pieces together. They'd shattered their own world. And I was done picking up the pieces. 3 weeks later, I was standing in front of the courthouse again. This time, the sun was bright and warm on my shoulders, no trace of the chill I'd felt the first time I'd walked these steps. I was there to give my official statement to finalize the freeze on my parents' assets. They'd fought it every step of the way, of course, hiring new lawyers, whispering lies in every corner of town, painting themselves as victims of their ungrateful daughter. But the documents didn't lie. And neither did I. As I stepped inside, I felt the weight of everything we'd uncovered settle around me like a shield. Every forged signature, every stolen dollar, every whispered promise that had turned out to be nothing but manipulation. Inside, my parents were waiting. My mother looked older somehow, her hair pulled back in a tight bun that couldn't hide the lines of worry on her face. My father stood next to her, his shoulders stiff, his jaw tight. They looked like strangers to me. We didn't speak. We didn't have to. The silence between us was louder than any apology they might have offered. Sasha stood by my side, her expression calm and resolute. This is it, she said softly. Once your statement is filed, they'll have no choice but to face the consequences. I nodded. Let's do it. It didn't take long. The clerk took my statement, scanning the pages with practiced efficiency. When she handed me the final copy, she offered a small, sympathetic smile. You've been through a lot, she said. It's good you're standing up for yourself. Thank you, I said, my voice steady. When I stepped out into the sun again, my parents were gone. I didn't know where they'd gone, and for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't care. Their problems weren't mine to solve anymore. Sasha came up beside me, her phone already buzzing with new messages. I'm getting calls from reporters, she said. They're picking up the story, asking for interviews. I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. I'm done talking. The documents speak for themselves. She nodded, slipping her phone back into her pocket. What will you do now? I let out a long breath, the first real exhale in weeks. I'm going to live my life. Without them. Without any of this hanging over my head. That evening, I packed a single suitcase. I'd booked a ticket to Florence, a city I'd always wanted to see, but had never dared to visit because there was always another family emergency, another crisis to handle. As I zipped the suitcase shut, I felt something shift inside me, a lightness I hadn't known was possible. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a video call from Aunt Harriet. I answered her face, filling the screen with a warm smile. I hear you're finally leaving, she said. About damn time. I laughed a real laugh that felt like it cracked open something in my chest. I'm ready, I said. Really ready. I'm proud of you, she said. You didn't let them define you. Thank you, I said. For everything. Florence is waiting, she said. Go find your joy, Ruby Jane. At the airport, I ran into Quincy, my cousin, who had once accidentally shared everything to the country club group chat. He was grinning as he handed me a coffee. You know, he said, I still can't believe how far you've come. Neither can I said, smiling as I took the cup. But I'm done letting them take pieces of me. He raised an eyebrow. So, what's next? Italian adventures, finding yourself in art and wine. Exactly, I said. And maybe, just maybe, forgetting all about the name DeWitt for a while. Quincy laughed. Good. They don't deserve you. As he walked me to security, he paused. You know what I think? The best revenge is not proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right. I think you're right, I said. I waved as I walked through the checkpoint, feeling every step like a victory. On the plane, I watched the clouds drift by the world, falling away beneath me. I thought about all the times I'd been told that family was everything, that I owed them everything. But the truth was, I owed them nothing. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what would happen if I stopped trying to fix their lives. I was done cleaning up their messes, done sacrificing myself for people who only saw me as a safety net. I was free. A week later, I was wandering the cobbled streets of Florence, the air filled with the smell of espresso and the soft chatter of tourists. My phone buzzed with another message from my mother, some final attempt at guilt that I didn't bother to read. Instead, I slipped the phone into my pocket and looked up at the sunlit domes and marble statues that surrounded me. This was my life now, a life I'd chosen, a life I didn't have to apologize for. In a small cafe overlooking the Arno River, I sat with a notebook and a cappuccino, writing down everything I'd learned. Not about them, about me. About how strength wasn't about holding everyone else up. It was about knowing when to let go. As I finished my coffee, I saw a group of travelers laughing together, their voices light and easy. I realized then that family wasn't just blood. It was the people you chose, the people who didn't demand your sacrifice, but lifted you up instead. I closed my notebook and stood up, feeling the sun on my face. I didn't know where this journey would take me. I didn't know who I would become without the weight of my family's lies. But I knew this, I was done carrying anyone else's burden. And that was enough. If Ruby Jane's story resonates with you, if you've ever felt the crushing weight of family loyalty or manipulation, remember this, you are not alone.